My farm's gone. All of it. Burned to hell. That's the first thing I said when I called my son after 12 straight hours of fire, smoke, and watching everything I ever worked for turn into ash. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stood there barefoot in blackened soil, holding the melted handle of Harold's old toolbox and staring at the smoking skeleton of my barn. The fire department said it started 2 valleys over and swept through faster than they could react. In less than an hour, 50 years of sweat, memory, and land was nothing but a hot, smoking mess. I'm so glad you're here. If you're watching this video, please like and subscribe to my channel and tell me in the comments where you're listening to my story of survival from. I want to know how far this journey goes. My name is Lorraine. I'm 68 years old, and I thought I'd seen it all. I buried my husband 12 years ago. I raised a boy who became a banker and moved to Phoenix. I rebuilt the roof myself when the hailstorm tore it off back in '07. But nothing, and I mean nothing, prepares you for the moment you walk outside and see your entire farm glowing orange like a furnace from hell. It was 4:26 in the morning when I woke up coughing. The smoke was thick in the hallway and the power was out. I remember fumbling for the flashlight I kept by the fridge. By the time I got the front door open, the sky was lit up like Judgment Day. Flames were dancing across the ridge and sprinting straight toward the barn. I had maybe 10 minutes, maybe less. I didn't grab clothes. I didn't grab food. I grabbed one duffel bag, stuffed my marriage license, a photo of Harold in uniform, and the title deed for the farm inside. I didn't even have time for the insurance papers. I locked the door on instinct, even though I knew there wouldn't be a door to come back to. By the time I drove my truck down the dirt road, the back pasture was fully engulfed. The cows were screaming. I can still hear it. That sound. Pure panic. I couldn't save them. I couldn't save the hay. I couldn't save the wooden gate Harold built with his bare hands the summer we got married. By 7 a.m., it was gone. Everything. The farmhouse, the feed shed, the old windmill, even the swing Harold made for Elliot when he was 5. I sat on the hood of my truck, still in my nightgown, covered in soot, watching smoke rise over land that had been in my family since 1942. The fire chief came by around 9, said I was lucky to be alive. Lucky. That's what they call it when you escape with your life but nothing else. He gave me a bottle of water and a thin blanket and told me FEMA would come by in the next few days. But it'll take time, Mum. A lot of people need help right now. I thanked him, even though I wanted to scream. I didn't have time to wait around for some agency to hand me forms. I had nowhere to sleep, nowhere to cook, nowhere to cry. So I did the only thing I could think of. I called my son. I didn't expect him to answer on the first ring. He usually let me go to voicemail and texted back hours later. But this time, maybe he heard something in my voice. Maybe he remembered who raised him. Maybe he knew this wasn't just one of my check-in calls. This was different. "Mum," he answered, groggy. "Elliot, it's gone," I said. "What do you mean, gone?" "The fire. The farm's gone. I need somewhere to stay." A pause, just long enough for me to feel the bottom drop out. "Of course, Mom. Come here. We'll figure it out." I hung up and stared at the phone like I didn't believe what I'd heard. My son, my only family. He was going to help. After all the birthdays he missed, all the Christmases he cut short, all the times I said I was fine when I wasn't. Maybe, just maybe, he remembered I was still his mother. I refueled the truck at a gas station off the interstate, using the last of the cash in my purse. $42. The attendant gave me a free coffee after I told her what happened. She didn't ask questions. She just poured the cup, nodded, and said, "You take care now." I drove 8 hours straight, through the blackened hills, past the small towns I hadn't seen in years, toward Phoenix, toward Elliot's house in that polished suburb with its iron gates and palm trees that don't belong in the desert. I didn't let myself think. I didn't let myself feel. I just drove. When I pulled into his driveway, it was near sunset. The sky was turning gold behind the red-tiled roofs. I sat in my truck a long time before I got out. My legs felt heavy. My hands were still shaking. I had nothing but 3 bags and a heart full of soot. I walked up to his front door, ready to fall into his arms. But what happened next? I never saw coming. Elliot opened the door with that distracted look he always wore when I interrupted his routine. His hair was still damp from a shower. The house behind him smelled like some expensive candle. His eyes flicked down to the bags I was holding, then back to my face. He didn't hug me. He didn't step aside. "Mom," he said, "you made it." I nodded. My hands were stiff from gripping the steering wheel too long. My shirt stuck to my back with sweat. My legs felt like wood. "I drove straight through," I said. "Didn't want to stop." He nodded like he understood. Then he moved just enough for me to squeeze past him into the cool, silent house. Everything looked exactly like I remembered from the last time I visited 2 years ago. The same white sofa, the same grey walls, the same untouched coffee table books arranged just so. But there was something colder now, less like a home and more like a showroom. Vanessa stepped into the room like she was entering a meeting. High-waisted slacks, silk blouse, that slick bun on top of her head. She smiled without teeth. "Lorraine, that fire was awful. Elliot told me everything. I'm so sorry." I set the bags down near the wall. My shoulder throbbed. "Thanks," I said. "It's been a long couple of days." She nodded and looked at Elliot. Something passed between them, something silent. The same kind of wordless exchange couples share when they're deciding what's okay to say out loud. "We thought we could sit down," Elliot said. "Figure out the best way to get you settled." "Settled?" I asked. "I thought I could stay here for a bit, just until I figure things out." "Of course," Vanessa said quickly. "Just until then." She sat on the arm of the sofa, legs crossed, hands resting on her knee like she was interviewing me. Elliot stayed standing, arms folded, not too close. "I filed the insurance claim," I said. "They're saying maybe 4 to 6 weeks before any payout. Could be longer." "Do you know how much they'll give you?" Elliot asked. "They said maybe 150, less after deductibles. That won't rebuild the house, but it's something." There was a pause. Vanessa tilted her head like she was evaluating the numbers. "We just want to make sure everyone's comfortable," she said. "This house is a little tight." I looked around. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, an open-concept kitchen bigger than my old living room. "I won't be in the way," I said. "I'll keep to myself. I can cook, clean. I just need a place to sleep." Vanessa pressed her lips together. Elliot scratched the back of his neck. "We've got routines, Mum," he said. "Long hours. We both work from home sometimes." "So you're saying no," I said. "Not no," Vanessa said quickly. "Just maybe there's a better solution. There are lovely extended stay places nearby. We could help you get set up." I felt the words slam into me. My body didn't move, but something inside me cracked. "You want me in a motel?" I said. "Only temporarily," Vanessa replied. "Until the insurance comes through. That way you'll have your own space." "And how am I supposed to pay for that?" I asked. Elliot reached into his pocket and pulled out his wallet. He slid out a few bills and held them toward me. "I can help. A couple hundred should get you started." I didn't take the money. I stared at his hand, the same hand I'd held when he had night terrors, the same hand I kissed before every soccer game. "A couple $100, I said. "Is that what I'm worth now?" "Mom, come on," he said. I turned to Vanessa. "What about you? You okay with this? Sending your boyfriend's mother to a hotel after she just lost everything?" Her eyes didn't flinch. Her tone stayed smooth. "It's not about comfort, Lorraine. It's about boundaries. We think it's healthier this way." I almost laughed. Healthier, like I was a disease they were managing. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I picked up my bags and walked toward the door. "Wait," Elliot said. "Don't be like that." "Like what?" I asked. "Like a mother who expected her son to remember who raised him." He looked away. Vanessa stood up but didn't follow me. I stepped out into the night without looking back. In the driveway, I sat behind the wheel for a long time. The heat from the asphalt rose up through the floorboards. The last bit of daylight disappeared behind the houses. I could see their silhouettes through the front window, talking low, probably about how dramatic I was. I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I just sat there feeling the weight of 68 years pressing down on me. I had no home, no animals, no garden, no walls. The only thing I had left was the hollow ache of realizing your child sees you as an inconvenience. I started the truck and backed out slowly. I didn't know where I was going. I only knew it wasn't there. The Walmart parking lot was almost empty when I pulled in. A few RVs were parked near the edges, windows covered in foil to block the heat. I parked under the flickering streetlight, turned off the engine, and sat still for a moment, my fingers still clenched around the steering wheel. The engine ticked as it cooled. My back ached, my feet were swollen, my throat was dry. I didn't move. It was almost midnight. I shifted the seat back and reached for the blanket I kept behind the driver's seat. I had packed it years ago, back when Harold was alive and we used to drive out to county fairs. Funny how something that used to smell like popcorn and hayrides now smelled like smoke and sweat. I pulled the blanket over my legs and leaned my head back. I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing Vanessa's voice. Boundaries. Healthier. As if the sight of me in their living room was going to unbalance their whole life. I dozed off around 2 but kept waking up every hour, stiff and cold. At 5 a.m., the sun started to rise. Pink and orange light spilled across the lot. A security guard in a neon vest walked past and gave me a quick look. He didn't stop. He'd probably seen worse. By 6, I was inside the Walmart bathroom, washing my face at the sink. The cold water felt like pins against my skin. I avoided the mirror. I didn't want to see what I looked like. I bought a coffee and a banana with the cash I had left. $81.35. That's what I had to my name. Not counting the insurance claim that might come in weeks, not counting the barn that was now a pile of ash. I sat in the front seat of the truck, watching the world wake up. Young mums dragging sleepy kids through the sliding doors. Retired couples pushing carts full of garden supplies. Everyone had a purpose, a place to go. I had nowhere. I drove around for a while. No destination, just roads. I thought about calling a friend, but realized I hadn't spoken to most of them in years. After Harold died, I stopped going to the church potlucks, stopped saying yes to invitations. I'd told myself I was tired, but really, I just didn't want to talk to people who still had their husbands. Around 9, I pulled into a gas station and filled up half a tank. I stood there with the nozzle in my hand, staring at the numbers climb. When it passed 30, I felt panic rise in my chest. I stopped it at 35 and hoped it would get me through another day. Back in the truck, I flipped open the glove box, looking for anything I might have forgotten. That's when I saw it. tucked behind some old receipts and a dried-out pen. A business card, yellowed, the edges soft from age. Howard Ellison. The name hit me like a rush of warm air. I hadn't thought about Howard in years. We'd known each other back in high school. He was the kind of boy who smiled with his whole face, the kind who fixed your bike without being asked. We'd dated for a while, talked about leaving town together, maybe heading west. But life had other plans. He left for college. I stayed and married Harold. But I had kept the card. Howard had given it to me the last time we saw each other. He wrote his number on the back in his blocky handwriting and said, "If life ever knocks you down, call me." That was 50 years ago. I stared at the card. The phone number probably didn't even work anymore. He could be dead for all I knew. But the thought of hearing a familiar voice, someone who once cared for me just because I was me, not because of what I owned or could offer, it felt like air in my lungs after drowning. I put the card in the cup holder and drove to a quiet lot near a closed strip mall. I sat there for an hour, just looking at it. The past kept flashing through my head. Howard taking me out to the quarry in his old Chevy, us lying on the hood, staring at the stars. His hand in mine, his words soft in my ear. "You deserve more than this town can offer, Lorraine." I didn't call him. Not that day. I couldn't bring myself to do it yet. My pride hadn't cracked all the way through. Not yet. Instead, I drove back toward the other side of town and parked behind a closed garden center. I spent the afternoon napping in the heat, windows cracked just enough to breathe. By evening, I had $42 left. I walked into a gas station, bought a cheap sandwich, and ate it in the truck. My mouth was dry. The bread tasted like dust. I chewed it slowly, staring out the windshield, watching the sky grow darker. I thought about Elliot, wondered if he was eating dinner at his granite kitchen island, wondered if Vanessa was lighting another expensive candle, maybe pouring a glass of wine, wondered if they talked about me at all. Maybe they thought I'd already found another place. Maybe they didn't care. I looked over at the business card again. Maybe I couldn't do this on my own after all. Maybe I needed help. I didn't want charity. I didn't want pity. I wanted someone to look at me and see more than ashes. The sun set. I pulled the blanket over me again. Tomorrow, I told myself. Tomorrow I'd decide. I didn't sleep much that night. The back seat was cramped and the heat stuck to my skin even after the sun went down. I kept waking up every time a car drove by or a sprinkler kicked on in the empty garden center lot. By morning, I had a knot in my back and a pounding behind my eyes. My mouth tasted like old coffee and bitterness. I sat up, pulled my hair into a low ponytail, and looked at the card again. Howard Ellison. His name stared back at me like it had been waiting all these years. I flipped it over and stared at the number again. The ink was faded but still readable. I pulled out my phone and typed it in. Then I stared at the screen. I didn't press call. Instead, I tucked the card into my purse and started the truck. I needed to move. I needed to wash my face and get some food in me before I made any decisions. I drove to a gas station with a bathroom that didn't smell like bleach and regret. I cleaned up the best I could, changed shirts in the truck, then bought another coffee and a granola bar. That left me with $36. I sat there in the parking lot with the window cracked, staring at the steering wheel. I thought about Harold, about how we met at a summer barbecue, about how he brought me lemonade and couldn't stop looking at my hands. He said they looked like I could build a house with them. He wasn't far off. We built a life together, raised Elliot, paid off the land with blood and sweat and pride. Now Harold was gone. The land was gone. My son had turned his back, and I was here. 68 years old, sitting in a truck, unsure if I should press a button on a phone and ask for something I hadn't asked for in 5 decades. I pulled over to a quieter street and parked under the shade of an old oak. Then I took a deep breath and hit the green button. It rang once, twice. Morrison Development. This is James. His voice was deeper, slower, more polished. But I knew it right away. The years collapsed in a single second. I froze. James, I said. It's Lorraine. Lorraine Whitaker. Well, it used to be Lorraine Connors back then. Silence. I held my breath. Lorraine, he said finally. My God, he didn't sound annoyed. He didn't sound confused. He sounded like someone who just stumbled across something he thought he'd lost forever. I'm sorry to call out of the blue, I said. I don't even know if this number still worked. I didn't know who else to call. Where are you? He asked. The tone of his voice shifted. No more surprise, just quiet concern. I'm in Phoenix, kind of, in my truck. My farm burned down. Everything's gone. And Elliot, he couldn't have me stay. I hated how small my voice sounded. Give me the address, he said. I'm coming to get you. You don't have to do that, I said quickly. I just needed to hear a friendly voice. I didn't mean to. Lorraine, tell me where you are. I gave him the street name and the nearest intersection. My hands trembled when I hung up. I stared at the phone like it had just changed everything. Because it had. 45 minutes later, a silver Lexus pulled up behind my truck. He stepped out and looked right at me. He had silver in his hair now, lines around his eyes. But it was him. The same storm-colored eyes, the same calm way he moved. He didn't ask questions. He opened my door, helped me out of the truck, and pulled me into a hug. I didn't cry, not yet. But I felt something shift in my chest. He helped me move my bags into the Lexus. The worn toolbox went in the trunk. He didn't comment on how little I had. He just drove. The silence wasn't awkward. It was full. He didn't need to fill it with small talk. Neither did I. You hungry? He asked after a while. I could eat, I said. He took me to a small diner off the freeway. Clean booths, fresh coffee, real food. We didn't say much while we ate, but he looked at me like I wasn't broken, like I was still the girl he used to drive out to the quarry, like I still mattered. When we finished, he paid without a word and walked me back to the car. The air felt lighter. My shoulders dropped for the first time in days. Where are we going? I asked. Home, he said. I didn't argue. The drive out of town was quiet. As the city faded and the hills returned, I stared out the window and let the road carry me somewhere new. He had come for me. After all these years, he had come for me. And somehow, that was the first thing that made me feel like I wasn't just surviving. I was beginning again. The road curved through hills thick with pine, the kind that stayed green year-round. We'd been driving for a while, maybe 40 minutes, and I hadn't asked many questions. Howard seemed to know I needed quiet more than conversation. The Lexus moved like a whisper down the winding roads. The farther we got from the city, the easier it was to breathe. When we finally pulled off onto a gravel drive, I didn't know what to expect. I thought maybe he'd downsized into something modest, a clean little cabin or a retirement condo near a golf course. But when the trees cleared, I saw it. His house wasn't flashy, but it was something. Built low into the hillside, all stone and glass, like it had grown out of the mountain itself. A wide porch wrapped around the front, and the windows caught the afternoon light like polished copper. There was a garden blooming along the edge, not the neat kind with trimmed hedges, but the soft kind that let wildflowers grow tall. Howard parked near the side and turned off the engine. "I built this after Mum passed," he said. "She always wanted a place with a porch big enough for 2 rocking chairs." I didn't know what to say, so I didn't say anything. I followed him up the steps and into the house. Inside smelled like lemon and cedar, the kind of clean that doesn't come from bleach, but from care. The floors were dark wood, the ceilings high. There were books, everywhere, stacked on end tables, lining the walls, half read on the arm of the couch. And in every room, some trace of life. A coffee cup left on a coaster, a jacket hung over a chair, a dog-eared newspaper on the kitchen counter. "This is beautiful," I said finally. "Thanks. Took a few years to get it how I wanted." He led me down a hallway past a guest bath, then opened a door at the end. "This is yours," he said. The room was warm and sunlit, with soft blankets folded at the foot of a queen-sized bed. The walls were painted a pale blue. There was a chair by the window and a small bookshelf with a lamp and a clock and a vase of yellow daisies that looked too fresh to be coincidence. "I didn't expect," I started, then stopped. "You don't have to say anything," he said. "You're here. That's enough." I sat down on the bed, suddenly more tired than I'd felt all week. "Rest for a bit. I'll make tea." He left the door open. I didn't lie down. I just sat there, hands in my lap, staring at the vase of flowers. I didn't cry. I didn't smile either. I felt suspended, like I wasn't quite inside my own body yet. When I finally came back into the kitchen, the sun was lower and the tea was steeping. Howard handed me a mug and sat across from me at the island. "You hungry?" "A little." "Good. I made soup. Nothing fancy." He ladled out 2 bowls of vegetable soup, rich with thyme and garlic, and something warm that settled right into my bones. I hadn't had real food in days. It tasted like a beginning. "Do you want to talk about it?" he asked. I shook my head. Not yet. We ate in silence, spoons scraping against ceramic. After dinner, I helped him with dishes. It felt strange but natural. The rhythm of routine. The kind you don't realize you miss until you fall back into it. Later, we sat on the porch, each with a blanket across our laps. The stars came out one by one. No city lights to chase them away. Just quiet and crickets and wind through the trees. "I never married," Howard said suddenly. I looked over. "Came close once. Didn't stick." I waited. I always told myself I was too busy, too focused on the business. But the truth is, nobody ever felt right. Not after you. I looked down at my hands. The skin thinner now, the veins showing. Hands that had pulled weeds, held babies, folded towels, buried a husband. I didn't know what to do with them. "Life doesn't usually give second chances," he said. "No, it doesn't. But sometimes it gives a moment, and if you're lucky, you don't waste it." I nodded. "I don't know what happens next," I said. "You don't have to." We stayed out there a while longer. Eventually, he went inside and left me with the stars. I pulled the blanket tighter and watched a bat flit across the moon. I didn't know where I was headed. But for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel lost. I felt seen. And that was more than I ever expected. The next morning, I woke up before the sun. The room was still and quiet, but not the kind of quiet that makes you feel alone. I lay there for a few minutes, listening to the sounds of a house that belonged to someone who kept it alive. Floorboards creaked with morning air. Birds started calling outside the window, and somewhere in the kitchen, I could hear a kettle heating. I got up, stretched, and stepped into the hallway. I didn't knock. I didn't need to. The smell of coffee led me straight to the kitchen, and there he was. Howard. Barefoot, already dressed, flipping pancakes on a cast-iron skillet like it was a normal Tuesday. "You sleep all right?" he asked without turning around. "Better than I have in weeks," I said. He slid 2 pancakes onto a plate and handed it to me like he used to do in high school with cafeteria sandwiches. No ceremony. Just, "Here, this is yours." We ate in the breakfast nook, a little round table next to a big window that looked out over the garden. The sun broke through the trees, casting long beams across the hardwood. "After breakfast," he said, "I want to show you something." He didn't explain. He just helped clean up, handed me a pair of old rubber boots from the closet, and led me out the back door. We walked along a gravel path, past the shed and a row of raised beds bursting with tomatoes, squash, and something leafy I didn't recognize. At the edge of the yard, a trail cut through the trees. The scent of pine and soil was thick in the air. We walked in silence for 10 minutes until we reached a small clearing. There, tucked between 2 old oaks, was a greenhouse. Not a big one, but solid. Clear panels, cedar frame, wide double doors. He opened them and stepped inside. "I built this last fall," he said, "mostly to keep myself busy. I start things in here, move them out to the beds in spring. It's peaceful." The air inside was warm and humid. Rows of seedlings lined the tables, herbs, flowers, vegetables, everything labeled, organized, alive. "I thought maybe you'd like to work in here," he said. "If you want. You don't have to. But I figured someone like you, someone who knows how to grow things, might want space again." My throat tightened. I walked to one of the tables and touched the edge. It was smooth, sturdy, handmade. "You made all of this?" I asked. "Every screw." I looked at him and felt something shift again, something steady. "I'd like that," I said, and I meant it. We spent the next few hours going over what he'd planted, what still needed transplanting, what had failed and needed pulling. It was quiet work, gentle. My hands remembered the rhythm, even if my body moved slower than it used to. By noon, I was sweaty and dirt-smudged, and I hadn't felt more myself in weeks. That afternoon, we sat on the back porch drinking lemonade. Howard was reading a book. I was trimming dead leaves off a potted fern. The silence was good, easy, but it didn't last. Around 3, my phone rang. I didn't recognize the number, but something in my gut told me who it was. I answered. "Mum?" Elliot's voice was low, cautious. "I've been trying to reach you. Your number went to voicemail." "I changed phones," I said. "Left the old one in the truck." "Where are you?" "I'm fine." "Are you safe?" I paused. "Yes." There was a long silence on his end. "Look," he said. "Vanessa and we talked. We feel awful about how everything went down. I was hoping maybe we could meet, talk it out." "I don't think that's necessary," I said. "Mum, come on. We didn't mean to hurt you. It was just a lot, you know. You showing up like that. We weren't prepared." "You didn't need to be prepared," I said. "You just needed to be decent." He exhaled. "I know. I messed up. Vanessa knows too. She's actually the one who said we should call." I almost laughed. Of course she did. "We were thinking maybe dinner? You could come over? Or we could meet somewhere." I looked at Howard, still reading quietly, feet crossed, glass sweating on the table beside him. "I'm staying with someone," I said. Elliot paused. "Who?" "A friend." "Mom, you don't have friends in Phoenix." "I didn't say I was in Phoenix." Another pause. Are you with a man?" I didn't answer. "Is this safe? Do you even know this guy?" I felt something sharp rise in my chest. I know that he didn't send me to a motel the day after I lost my home. That's not fair. It's honest. Elliot sighed again. "I just want to make things right. That's going to take more than dinner. Can we start?" I looked at the sky. The sun still high. The garden below blooming. Maybe, but on my terms. He agreed. Then he hung up. I didn't tell Howard right away. I just sat there, watching the breeze move through the trees, and tried to understand how I felt. Not angry, not bitter, just awake. Something had shifted, not just outside, inside me, and I wasn't sure if I trusted it yet. But I knew one thing. I wasn't going back to who I was. 2 days after the phone call, Vanessa showed up. I was out in the greenhouse, thinning out tomato seedlings when Howard came down the path with his phone in hand. "She's here," he said. I wiped my hands on a rag and looked at him. "Elliot?" "No, her." He didn't have to say her name. I knew. I felt it in my stomach. I followed him back to the house slowly, wiping dirt from under my nails. The sun was sharp overhead. When we reached the porch, Vanessa was already standing there. Tight dress, too much perfume, eyes hidden behind dark sunglasses. "Vanessa," I said. "Lorraine," she said like she was greeting a client. "I hope this isn't a bad time." I didn't answer. Howard stepped aside and nodded toward the door. "I'll give you two a minute." She waited until he was out of earshot, then took off her sunglasses and held them in one hand like a prop. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry. Things didn't go the way we hoped. It was a complicated situation." I stayed silent. She took a breath. "Look, I know how it looked, and maybe we didn't handle things perfectly, but we didn't expect you to come like that, unannounced, with everything going on in our careers and the house and our schedule." We froze. "Vanessa," I said quietly, "you asked me to leave the night my life burned down. There's not a version of that that sounds reasonable." "I know, I do, but we're trying to fix it." "Are you?" She blinked, then recovered quickly. "Elliot's been reaching out. We want to reconnect, maybe rebuild some trust." I folded my arms. "And why now?" Her lips tightened for half a second. Then came the smile again. "Because you matter to him, and to me, and people are talking." I raised an eyebrow. "What people?" "His co-workers, my clients. It's a small world, Lorraine. People saw you with that man, the one who picked you up. The house, the car, the reputation. It's not a secret." I laughed, short and sharp. "So this isn't about guilt. It's about optics." "I didn't say that." "You didn't have to." She stepped forward slightly, lowering her voice. "Elliot's your son. He's trying. Don't shut him out because of a misunderstanding." "It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a decision. You both made it clear." Her eyes flicked past me toward the greenhouse, the porch, the tidy gravel drive. "You've landed well, haven't you?" I said nothing. She smiled wider. "I hope this works out for you. I really do." She turned and walked down the steps, her heels crunching on the gravel. Her car, a new black sedan, gleamed at the end of the drive. She got in, backed out smoothly, and was gone. Howard stepped out onto the porch, coffee mug in hand. How'd it go? Like expected. He nodded. Want to go into town? Get lunch? Yes, I said. Please. We went to a quiet diner near the hardware store, sat in a booth by the window. The waitress brought us sweet tea and chicken salad sandwiches. You don't have to explain, he said after a while. I know. But if you ever want to, I looked at him. His patience sat heavy in the air, solid, kind. I'm not mad, I said. I'm tired of pretending I should be grateful for breadcrumbs. You shouldn't. I raised him. I wasn't perfect, but I was always there. Every school form, every scraped knee, every late-night fever. I gave him all the best parts of me. And when I had nothing left, they acted like I was a problem to manage. You're not a problem. Not here. I know. We finished lunch in comfortable silence. When we left the diner, I felt lighter, not healed, but less hollow. That night, Elliot called again. I let it go to voicemail. I didn't listen to the message. In the morning, I made biscuits. Howard came down the stairs in his robe, hair still damp from the shower. You're spoiling me, he said. I smiled. I like feeding people who don't resent it. He grinned and poured 2 mugs of coffee. After breakfast, we sat on the porch. The wind picked up slightly. The trees danced in the breeze. You think she'll come back? He asked. I think she'll try something. She's not used to being told no. He nodded. Let her try. She's not on your land anymore. That line settled in my chest like an anchor. Strong. Steady. I wasn't on their land anymore either. I had my own now. Not because of a deed or a title or a fence, but because someone finally looked at me and said, stay, and meant it. The next week passed quietly, almost peacefully, like the eye of a storm that hadn't reached us yet. I worked in the greenhouse most mornings, pulling weeds and transplanting starters into soil that smelled alive. My hands had found their purpose again. There was something healing about routine, about dirt under your nails and a day that ends with sore legs and a full breath. Howard kept busy too. He had meetings, calls, projects still running, even though he'd stepped back from most of the day-to-day. But he always made time. Breakfast together, coffee on the porch, evening walks through the back trail behind the house. Sometimes we didn't say much. We didn't have to. One evening, after dinner, we sat at the kitchen table going over seed catalogues. He slid one toward me. You ever try purple carrots? He asked. Not since I was a kid. Then we're planting some. I smiled. It was a small thing, but it mattered. Later that night, I found myself standing at the window, looking out over the yard. The moonlight spilled over the gravel path, the raised beds, the wide porch. Everything felt so different from where I'd come from. Not just the scenery, the silence, the safety. That's when I saw the car. It was parked just past the gate. Not moving, no headlights, just sitting there. I stepped onto the porch and narrowed my eyes. It was Elliot's car. I recognized the shape, the way he always angled it when he parked. The engine was still running. I walked down the path, slowly. I didn't rush. When I got close enough, the driver's window rolled down. Hi, Mom. He looked tired, pale, nervous. What are you doing here? I just wanted to see you. Talk, in person. You could have called. I did. You didn't answer. I crossed my arms. I wasn't in the mood. He looked down at the steering wheel, then back at me. Can I come in? No. He looked surprised. Not even to sit and talk? Not tonight. He was quiet for a moment. Then he reached into the passenger seat and pulled out a manila folder. I brought something. I didn't move. He opened the folder and held it up. It's paperwork. Legal stuff. I had a lawyer draft up a financial support agreement. I just wanted you to know I'm trying to make things right. This would guarantee you monthly support, in case things don't work out here. I didn't say anything. He kept talking. I know you think we're awful. I know what happened was wrong. But Vanessa and I talked. We want to help. You don't have to depend on this guy. He said it like Howard was a stranger, like the man who drove across the state to pick me up from a parking lot was some questionable character. I took a breath. Elliot, go home. Mom, I'm not interested in your agreement. I don't want your monthly support. I don't want Vanessa's approval. I needed you 3 weeks ago. You weren't there. His jaw tightened. I'm here now. It's too late for paperwork. Too late for performative guilt. He dropped the folder on the passenger seat and looked out the windshield. You've changed, he said. I've remembered who I was. That's not the same thing. He started the car again, but didn't drive off. Can I ask you something? What? Is this about money? I stared at him. Excuse me? Are you staying with him because he's wealthy? Because of what he can offer? The words hit like cold water. I stepped back from the car. You really think that low of me? I don't know what to think anymore. Then let me make it clear. I'm here because I was wanted, because I was seen, not because of money, not because of revenge, because I finally felt safe again. He didn't answer. I stepped away. Don't come back here unless I ask you to. Don't show up with documents. Don't send Vanessa. If you want to talk, you start by listening. That's the only offer left on the table. I turned and walked back toward the house. I didn't look back. I didn't wait for him to leave. Howard met me at the porch steps. You all right? I nodded. Yeah, I finally said what I needed to say. He didn't ask for details. He just opened the door and let me inside. That night, I slept without waking. The first real sleep in weeks. Because I wasn't just in someone's home. I was in my place. And I had drawn a line. It happened on a Sunday morning. Howard had gone into town to pick up more lumber for a new raised bed he was building. I stayed behind to water the greenhouse and clean up the porch. The air was cool and the light still soft when a car rolled into the driveway without warning. It wasn't Elliot this time. Vanessa stepped out, wearing crisp white slacks and a silk blouse, like she was headed to brunch instead of barging onto private property. She held a designer tote under her arm and walked with her usual polished confidence. I met her halfway down the drive. You weren't invited, I said. I won't take much of your time, she replied. I just wanted to clear something up. I didn't answer. I folded my arms and waited. She pulled a small envelope from her bag and held it out. This is just information. I thought you should know before you make any long-term decisions. I didn't take it. What decisions? Her smile was thin. I know what it looks like. You living here, playing house with Howard, but it might interest you to know that he's not exactly as stable as he seems. I blinked. She continued. His company's been offloading assets for months. There's talk of a merger, quiet layoffs, lawsuits. I did some checking. So you ran a background check on the man who took me in after you pushed me out. I looked into him, for Elliot's sake, for yours. I don't need protection from Howard. She took a step closer. You're smart, Lorraine. You raised a son on a farm income and made it work. You know how fast a good season can become a bad one. All I'm saying is, be careful. He might be using you to look good while he restructures everything. Wealthy men do that. It's all optics. I stared at her. My blood didn't boil. It chilled. You came all the way out here to insult the one person who treated me like a human being. She held up the envelope again. Just read it. Do what you want with it. I didn't move. Put it on the table and leave, I said. She hesitated, then walked up the steps, placed the envelope on the porch table, and turned back. Don't say I didn't try, she muttered. Then she was gone. I didn't touch the envelope. Not right away. I waited until the sound of her car disappeared down the road. Then I sat, poured myself some cold tea, and opened it. Inside were printouts, articles, a few property listings, a spreadsheet with red highlights. It was clear she'd paid someone to dig this up. But nothing surprised me. I'd already heard Howard talk about scaling back. He told me the company was shifting focus, selling off commercial properties, pulling out of certain markets. He'd mentioned lawsuits. None of it was news. None of it changed anything. Still, something twisted in my chest. Not because I believed Vanessa, but because she thought I could be moved with that kind of threat. She still saw me as a problem, as a temporary situation to be managed, a widow clinging to an opportunity. I sat there a long time. Howard returned before noon, his truck loaded with cedar planks. I met him at the shed and helped unload. He noticed something in my face. What's wrong? She came. He didn't have to ask who. I told him everything. The envelope, the veiled threats, the spreadsheet. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he nodded once. Well, that explains the call I got last week. What call? A real estate lawyer said he'd been contacted anonymously about a possible lien against one of my properties, claimed I'd misrepresented an asset during a deal. Completely bogus. But now it makes sense. Vanessa? She's fishing, trying to make trouble. Maybe she thinks if she shakes the foundation hard enough, I'll push you out myself. Are you worried? About her? No. I've dealt with worse. He set down the last plank and looked me straight in the eye. But if this is too much, if it makes you question anything— It doesn't, I said. He nodded again. Good. Then let's finish the damn bed. We worked in silence, but it wasn't heavy. It was focused, steady. And when we finished, I stood back and looked at it like it was a fortress. That night, I shredded the papers from the envelope and lit them in the fireplace. I watched the flames eat every last word. Then I went to bed, pulled the blanket over my shoulder, and slept with the peace that only comes after you've finally chosen a side. Mine. Howard got the letter 3 days later. It was hand-delivered by a courier in a grey suit with a clipboard and a forced smile. I watched through the front window as he signed for it, his face unreadable. He stood there a moment, envelope in hand, then came back inside and laid it flat on the kitchen table. It's from Elliot's lawyer, he said. I didn't speak. I waited. He opened it calmly, unfolding the papers one by one. His eyes moved slowly across the lines. When he reached the last page, he looked up. They're threatening legal action, claiming undue influence, saying I've manipulated you for personal gain and cut your son out of potential inheritance he might reasonably expect. I felt my stomach twist. They're saying you what? That I coerced you into this relationship, possibly to shield assets, and that it's not in your best interest to remain here. They're requesting mediation, a hearing if necessary. I blinked at him. And do they think I don't have a say in my own life anymore? Apparently, they think you're vulnerable, that you can't make clear decisions. I sat down slowly at the table, my hands cold. Howard slid the letter over to me. Vanessa drafted this. The phrasing has her fingerprints all over it. I scanned the document. Phrases like undue enrichment and compromised mental state jumped off the page. They were treating me like some old woman who wandered into trouble, like I didn't know what I was doing. Howard poured me coffee, calm as ever. Do you want me to handle it? I shook my head. No, this one's mine. The next morning, I called Elliot. He answered on the second ring. Mom, you sent a lawyer to threaten the man who gave me a roof over my head. His tone shifted instantly. I didn't threaten anyone. We just want clarity. You disappeared. Now you're living with this guy, and we don't know what's going on. You know exactly what's going on. You just don't like that you're not in control of it. I'm trying to protect you. No, you're trying to protect your image, your money, whatever you think is slipping through your fingers. There was silence. Mum, you've always been emotional. You act out when you feel rejected. I stood up, my voice steady. I've been patient with you for a long time, Elliot. I've excused things. I've told myself it's just your way. But I won't let you weaponize my age or my grief just because you're embarrassed by how you treated me. I didn't mean for it to get this far. Yes, you did. You meant every inch of it. He let out a long breath. I'm sorry. You're not, but you will be. I hung up and looked out the window. The sun was high over the garden. Bees danced between rows of flowers. Nothing had changed, but everything felt different. That afternoon, I called a lawyer of my own, a woman named Cheryl who'd once represented the widow of a rancher I knew. She wasn't cheap, but she was sharp. I told her everything. She listened, asked smart questions, then gave a short laugh. They're bluffing, she said. But let me handle it. They picked the wrong woman to underestimate. Within 48 hours, Cheryl had filed a response. Included in it were photos of the property, receipts for the reconstruction of the greenhouse, a notarized statement of independence, and a copy of my will that clearly removed Elliot as beneficiary months before the fire. Howard watched me from across the room as I hung up the phone. You all right? I'm fine. He smiled. I like when you're like this. Like what? Unshakable. That weekend, Cheryl called back. They folded. No hearing, no mediation. Vanessa sent an email withdrawing the complaint. I didn't feel joy. I felt release, like something heavy had finally dropped behind me on the road, and I didn't need to drag it anymore. That night, Howard grilled steaks on the back patio. The sky was wide and gold. The trees swayed slow in the wind. You know, he said, handing me a glass of wine, if we wanted to make this permanent. I looked at him. I mean it, he said. You've rebuilt a life here. So have I. We could do it together, legally, officially, no pressure. I held the glass in my lap, stared at the way the sun caught the rim. I'd say yes, I said softly, if you're asking. He smiled. Then I guess I'm asking. We didn't toast. We didn't cheer. We just sat, side by side as the day ended around us. Quiet, certain, free. We were married on a Thursday morning. There was no big ceremony, no guest list, no dress rehearsals or flower arrangements. Just a quiet spot in Howard's back garden under the magnolia tree. a folded table for paperwork, and a retired judge from the next county over who still believed in doing things with dignity. Howard wore a grey suit that didn't look new, but fit like it was made for this moment. I wore a soft blue dress I found folded in the back of the guest room closet. No veil, no makeup beyond a little lipstick and powder. Just me, as I was. 68, wiser, and completely sure. The judge said a few words. Howard took my hands. His were warm and steady. We didn't write vows. We didn't need to. I do, he said. I do, I said. That was it. Quiet and clear. The air smelled like rosemary and fresh-cut grass. The sun filtered through the trees. It was enough. Afterward, we sat on the porch with slices of lemon cake from a local bakery and mugs of hot tea. Maria, the housekeeper who had been with Howard for nearly a decade, brought out a bottle of sparkling cider and poured it with a quiet kind of pride. To peace, she said. Howard raised his glass. To home, he added. I didn't say anything. I just smiled and took it in. The porch, the people, the moment. Later that evening, Howard built a fire in the backyard pit, and we sat close as the sky turned orange, then purple, then black. We didn't speak much, but when I leaned my head against his shoulder, he kissed the top of my head. That night, when we climbed into bed, it wasn't the nervous shuffle of newlyweds. It was calm, like settling into a place you were always meant to be. In the morning, we made pancakes. He made the batter. I flipped. We danced to an old song on the radio while the coffee brewed. For the first time in a long time, I didn't wake up feeling like I had to brace myself for the day. The next week, I got a call from Elliot. I almost didn't answer, but something told me to pick up. Mum, he said. I heard. I'm sure you did. You got married. I did. Another pause. I guess I should say congratulations. You don't have to. He sighed. Look, I know I messed up, and maybe I'll never fix it, but I do want you to be happy. I am. He sounded tired. I won't call again unless you want me to. Okay. I mean that. All right, Elliot. There was a long silence. Bye, Mum. Goodbye. I put the phone down. My hands didn't shake. My throat didn't close. I just felt done. Not in a bitter way, just finished. That afternoon, I walked the length of the garden, checking the vines, picking a few early tomatoes. Howard was in the workshop repairing a bench. Maria had gone home early. The wind moved soft through the trees. At the edge of the property, I looked out over the fence line. The hills rolled gently into the distance. A hawk floated above the trees. I remembered the smell of ash, the sound of cracking wood, the hollow weight of a door closing behind me. And I remembered what followed. Howard's car in the parking lot, his voice saying my name, his hands carrying my bags. I bent down and pulled a weed from the soil. It came loose easily, no fight left in it. I tossed it into the basket, wiped my hands on my pants, and turned back toward the house. Dinner was simple that night. Soup, crusty bread, a salad from the garden. Howard lit candles without saying a word. We sat across from each other and clinked glasses. To not looking back, he said. To what's next, I said. And we ate, slowly, like people with nothing to prove. The wind shifted as the sun dipped below the hill. The porch light clicked on behind us. In the trees, an owl called. And inside me, something finally settled. This was my home now, not because of a ring, not because of a title, but because I had chosen it. Fully, freely, and for the first time in a long time, the ground beneath my feet felt steady. 3 months after the wedding, I got a letter in the mail. Handwritten, no return address, just my name in a neat, familiar script. I opened it at the kitchen table while the kettle boiled. It was from Elliot. Not an email, not a text. A real letter, folded carefully, as if the weight of the paper might help say what he couldn't in person. He apologized. For the motel, for the silence, for not stepping in when Vanessa spoke over me, for letting pride do the talking. He didn't ask for anything. He just said he hoped I was doing well, that he saw the pictures online, that someone from his office had forwarded an article about Howard's latest land donation to the state park, and my name was mentioned in it. He said I looked happy. At the end, he wrote, "I don't expect you to forgive me, but if there's a space for a conversation someday, I'd like to earn it." I folded the letter slowly and left it on the table. Howard came in from the shed, wiping his hands on a rag. He saw my face and raised an eyebrow. "Something wrong?" "No," I said. "Something might be right." Later that day, I wrote Elliot back. Just a few lines, no lecture, no list of wrongs. Just this. "I'm not angry anymore. Not because it didn't hurt, but because I've learned to grow past what tried to bury me. I'm open to a conversation, but not on your terms, on honest ones. That's all." I mailed it without thinking twice. 2 weeks later, he called. We talked for 34 minutes. There were pauses, moments we didn't know what to say, but we stayed on the line. He told me Vanessa was traveling for work more, that he had started therapy again, that he wasn't trying to undo the past, just trying to understand it better. I didn't promise anything, but I didn't hang up either. Some days, healing sounds like a wedding vow. Other days, it sounds like a slow phone call with someone you once thought you'd never speak to again. We made plans to meet. It wasn't immediate. I needed space. But eventually, we found a Saturday. Howard and I drove into the city, met Elliot at a quiet cafe with big windows and soft music playing. He hugged me without asking. I let him. He asked questions, real ones, about the greenhouse, the wedding, about Harold. He didn't bring up inheritance, or money, or apologies too big to swallow. We talked like people who were finally facing each other without armor. And when we left, he asked if he could visit sometime. I said, "Let's see." That night, back at the house, Howard and I sat out on the porch again. "You all right?" he asked. "I think so," I said. "You sure?" "I'm not sure of everything, but I'm not carrying it the same way anymore." He reached over and took my hand. "You didn't need a lawyer to win. You just needed your voice." "I found it," I said. He nodded. "And I never want you to lose it again." The moon was bright that night. No clouds, no wind, just the sound of a garden settling into darkness. I thought about the woman I had been, the one who stood in her son's driveway with 3 bags and a broken heart, the one who had nowhere to go, no plan, just grit and grief and a name in an old wallet. I thought about her and I smiled. She made it. She didn't just survive. She rebuilt. And for once, the future didn't scare me. It felt earned. It felt like mine. Thank you for listening to my story. If you've ever found the strength to walk away, to start over, or to forgive without forgetting, I'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment and let me know where you're listening from, and what part of this story stayed with you. And if you're still on your journey, keep going.